Welcome to Destination Business Freedom, hosted by Pat Mancuso. Join us as we explore success strategies and hacks from leading entrepreneurs, helping you bridge the gap between financial success and personal freedom. Your journey starts here.
Thanks for joining us today on the Destination Business Freedom. I am Pat Mancuso, the host of our podcast, where we interview thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and business owners who have either exited their business or are on that journey. In today's case, we're going to be interviewing a business owner who exited his business with an 8-figure exit. My goal is to help small to medium-sized business owners close the gap between their finances and their freedom, and ultimately define where and arrive at that destination and exit their business, whatever that might look like, because of course there's multiple ways to potentially exit a business. Before we get started though, I'm going to talk about our sponsor today. So this episode is brought to you by the Mancuso Consulting Group, where we are committed to helping entrepreneurs and business owners close that gap between their finances and their freedom. We created the Mancuso method, and it encompasses over 30 years as a business owner in multiple businesses and his work with thousands of entrepreneurs. He helps them rise above the daily grind and arrive at their desired destination, which is the reason that most business owners started their business in the first place. When you go to www.themancuso.method and take their short assessment, you'll receive a powerful report with a personalized roadmap to your destination. Additionally, Pat will provide you with a 30-minute free consultation to review that roadmap and offer you valuable insights based upon his over 30,000 hours of expertise working with business owners. Pat believes so much in the power of the process that he guarantees he will add at least $10,000 of value to your 30-minute call. Otherwise, he'll write you a check for $500 on the spot. So if you're ready, go to www.themancuso.method.com, take the assessment, and then schedule your call. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am absolutely excited to share our guest today with you, and we're going to talk about his background here in just a second. But I have to give a shout out to Roland Frazier, Deanna Rogers, and the Epic Group, because I met our guest today at the Epic Group, and it's an amazing mastermind group that I'm a part of. So I want to give kudos out to them. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Ivan Polic. His story goes well beyond burned out and tired to free and inspired. He ran a very demanding aerospace manufacturing business and was swamped with challenges and sleepless nights. And I'm sure most of our listeners, Ivan, can relate to that as entrepreneurs. He turned the corner, built a team and a system until he was ultimately working 2 hours a week. He eventually exited altogether and sold to a private equity firm for 8 figures for a 98% cash deal, which is unheard of. And in the process, it only lasted 6 days, which OMG, Ivan, I've got to hear more about that. But congratulations and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pat. It's an honor to be here. I love your approach and all the vast experience of helping business owners. It's a hugely needed thing out there. A lot of pain out there.
Oh, there's no doubt.
I know the pain for sure.
No doubt, no doubt. So, Ivan, I always like to start with, in the first segment of our conversation, the where did you get the entrepreneurial itch? Like, did you own other businesses before the aerospace business, or was that really your first venture into it? And how did you get involved with it?
Well, yeah, I was a professional soccer player. That's something in my previous life, and so that's where I started everything. The competition, and that was a major quest that I was on, and I was able to fulfill that dream. And then once I finished my playing career, it was time to go on the next journey of learning. I had an electrical engineering degree, but I never actually worked in that field at all. Okay. And I got involved more on the business side, and then I had a very large learning curve on the business side, and then I was able to acquire the aerospace manufacturing business. And just as I acquired it, I was very pleased with myself. I earned my way through in that business, and then I was able to acquire it. And just as I acquired it, we signed an amazing 5-year deal. We moved into a new location. I was very happy. And 6 months into that, start, the 2008 crisis hit us.
Oh, wow.
And we lost 95% of our revenue. And the next 6 months were pretty much preparation on how to best go bankrupt. And so that was our start. You know, how do we preserve a little bit of dignity in this whole disaster? And somehow, you know, we're really blessed with a very strong mentor and an advisory group that helped us through that process, because we were done. And you know, Keith Cunningham, I don't know if you know Keith Cunningham.
You know the name.
Yes, so Keith Cunningham advised us and said we need to cut all the way down into the bones and muscle and everything. We had a 24/7 operation prior to the blow up, and after that we were running one shift 3 days a week.
Oh, wow.
It was a huge thing, and that was the only thing that enabled us to have enough oxygen to actually turn the whole thing around. And this is the business that we eventually exited.
Wow. Well, you know, so there's a couple things there. I would be remiss because I know people, you know, have curiosity. So you played professional soccer. So who's the most I mean, obviously I recognize your name for my soccer cards, but who would be the most recognizable name that you played with in your journey?
Well, I played against Carlos Valderrama. He's
Okay.
the famous Colombian long hair,
Yep.
Afro person. You know, I played with Kobe Jones, and Luis Hernandez is a national team Mexican star.
Okay.
Cienfuegos, Paul Caligiuri,
You
Eric.
played with some players.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's, you know, at the LA Galaxy level, there are a lot of really high level players.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'll be looking for my signed autographed Ivan card so I can hold on to it and watch it go up in value.
Yeah, we can make that happen, but I don't know about the value part.
Okay, so let's talk about this aerospace conversation. So one of the things you said, which I always like to point out things in case, you know, people listening kind of go right over it, is without Keith Cunningham, your business might not exist today, which is the importance of consultants, right?
Yeah, really experienced advisors that you trust and that have been through the wars and been through the tough times.
Yeah.
It was my first major. It wasn't a recession; it was a complete disaster.
It was a collapse.
So
Yeah.
it was a collapse, and you know, having been through a few of those, you see things differently. And so, you know, I advise people now, and having lived through that, I know what to say, when to say it, and how to say it, and how to actually make it through.
Yeah.
But back then, without any prior experience, you're completely disoriented, and you know, at that time there was no hope. There were no orders happening of any kind. I mean, it's not like you could have done something. You just had to make a huge adjustment.
Right.
And
who was your target client? Was it airlines?
No, it was we were at the component level, so we cut metal into machine parts.
Okay.
Precision machine parts that went into different assemblies that went on planes and military applications, mission critical parts.
Okay.
And so that's, you know, all of those people also, everybody kind of froze.
Sure.
Nobody knew what they were doing, and everybody else was preserving cash.
Yep.
And there were no orders to be had. And so we did like $1.5 million in the first quarter of 2009 off of the backlog that we had. And then in the month of March, we did 37,000 in revenue.
OMG. Oh my gosh.
So we were losing 200 grand per month for a while. It was very, very tough.
Oh my gosh. And so if I remember what you said, basically you bought the company or you were involved in the company, and 5 months later you buy it, or 5 months later than the crash. So 2009 and we're going to talk about the exit in a little bit, but just for framework for people, You're at the bottom, you're bleeding cash. That was 2009. When did you exit?
I exited 2022, 13 years later.
Okay. So just so we have some perspective in this conversation, we're going to come back to the exit and all that. Yet here's what I want to focus on. So as an owner, obviously you had some amazing experiences, both great in the growth and coming back from the bottom, but you were at the bottom, and so those experiences were probably not very pleasant. So what I want to ask you is this: as the owner of the business, and our objective is to help business owners on this journey wherever they are to get to wherever they want to get to. What do you feel like were one or two of the most important things you had to keep focused on or keep in front of you when you were at the bottom?
It was very, this is a kind of an extreme, drastic situation, but I had to focus on keeping a very close eye on cash.
Yep.
And then I had to focus on, making sure that we can withstand the long enough time until we can get some work in.
Sure.
Keep the lights on. And so we had to actually prepare for what if it doesn't work.
Right.
So we actually prepared for going actually under, because if it had kept going and we couldn't get enough traction for maybe 3 more months, 6 more months, we would have been done.
Right.
And so that's the value of the early enough decisiveness.
Right.
Had we hung on longer and wasted some of the resources that we had at our disposal, we wouldn't have made it.
You would have been able to recover. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had to make the drastic cuts early, and that's something that's very important in a situation that are drastic like this.
Yeah. So Ivan, I want to hammer this home, because I think people might hear what you just said and go, "Well, I'm not in that situation. It's not drastic for me." But from a consultant's perspective, I think what you just shared is applicable no matter what stage of the business is at, i.e., most and many business owners, a lot of business owners, whatever we want to characterize it as, don't keep an eye on their cash. In fact, a lot of business owners don't even know what a cash flow statement is. They look at their bank account. And so, that I think is really important. And then the other thing that you said that I want to kind of tag on to is that we don't respond fast enough, right? Like I was having a conversation earlier today in one of our prior recordings with an individual, and he was talking about exactly that point, that they were going through some challenges and they waited too long. Now they didn't go out of business, but they burned through a couple $100,000 of cash that they wouldn't have maybe had to burn through if they would have responded earlier. So I love those points, because I think they're applicable, no matter where somebody's at.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing that was very important is we did something called a 13-week rolling cash flow report and process in order to know and predict cash.
Yeah.
Not only where are we today, but where we're going to be 13 weeks from today, depending on the current conditions and the best assumptions we can make. And so that was very, very helpful. It provided a little bit of certainty and predictability in a very unpredictable environment.
It's interesting that you say that, and this comes back to exactly what I just emphasized, is that we're working on a product right now that we'll be able to roll out to our clients that does exactly that. Like, you did that 13 week future looking, forward looking cash flow because you didn't have a choice. If you didn't know what that looked like, literally you would have been out of business based upon what you said. And yet again, I think every business needs to have that 13 week, 13 month, 13 year. And people go, well, you can't do that. And we're going to actually be able to help companies with that, where, you can manipulate that data. Because if you don't know, in your case, let's use your case. If you didn't know what the next 13 weeks looks like, and you made a decision today that would have sucked some cash flow, 13 weeks from now, you might have needed that money and then made a decision differently. So I love that you brought that up. It's huge. So let me ask you this: in that journey, so you know, over that period, as a business owner, you probably had to make some tough decisions. And it sounds like maybe one of the first tough decisions you had to make was you had to probably lay off people and terminate people because you didn't have the cash to pay them. Were there other decisions? I mean, did you do that? And were there other tough decisions that you had to make in that journey?
Yeah, we had no choice at that point. We had to make a lot of difficult decisions. This was a very difficult business.
Yep.
Business that is in a kind of cascading abuse relationships, if you would, from the top, the
Yep.
big OEMs, all the way down to the bottom, and we were on the bottom at the component level. So not a lot of control on pricing, not a lot of control on conditions, on the quality clauses, on the changes. So it was extremely difficult to keep up with that. And somewhere along the way, we had one of our biggest customers say, you know what, I think we want 100%, 100% quality, the zero defect environment, go. And we were making 11,000 components per day. So
Wow.
we literally didn't know that parts were good yesterday, parts are no good today.
Yeah.
And so every day we had parts we didn't know if they were good or not. And then I use a metaphor for this is we were rebuilding an engine in a car while the car was moving.
I love that. I love
And
that.
it was really that was the second part where I didn't know if we were going to make it.
Oh man.
And I was really struggling. I was burning out pretty hard. There was major challenges. I remember one time driving up to the building and I parked and I couldn't let go of the wheel. I was that burnt out. I thought I was like, if I walk in there one more time with those same stories and problems and things, I'm gonna lose my mind. I literally felt that I was gonna have a heart attack or something.
Yeah.
It was if I kept pushing, it might have happened. That was actually my turning point
Yep.
of making a firm resolution with myself that I'm gonna build a team that can run this place without me.
So I want to come back to that, and yet you as an entrepreneur, we all face those, like sometimes those. Do I really want to keep doing this? Is it really worth it? I'm laying awake at night. I mean, I think all entrepreneurs face that. And so, just for perspective, '09, 2000. You said again, remind me, 2022.
Correct.
Okay. So, at what point did you hit rock bottom? What year?
Well, this was maybe 2017, 18 when I had my complete wipeout. I mean,
Okay.
I personally said I must do this differently because I was pushing.
Right.
Business was dependent on me. The team wasn't strong enough. I was plugging all the holes, firefighting, babysitting, everything you can in an operation that was running 24/7. You cannot do that. You just burn yourself out, which I
Sure.
did. And then from there, I turned the ship around completely with a completely different culture and team and people. That was a major journey, but that's the part that I'm the most proud of.
So let's talk about that. So what was the cause, the deciding factor, the aha moment that you said, okay, enough is enough. I need to do this differently. Like what was that moment?
I described it for you. It was in the car. I couldn't get out. And I was like, I think this is gonna end me. I think I was somewhere. It was really existential, and
Yeah.
I was like, my kids won't have a father.
Wow. Wow.
My kids won't have a father.
I
I
mean,
think
like you didn't want to end the business. You wanted to end everything.
that my kids won't have a father because I'm gonna have a heart attack next week.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
So
running on fumes completely, and then I was chasing some kind of standard that was impossible. I think it was some kind of I was trying to prove something.
right.
I was trying to prove something and take on the world, and I was doing pretty darn good, but it was not sustainable at all.
Oh man. Oh
So
man.
I had to make a major shift in my approach.
So let's go back to that for a second. Like what was the so you got your hands on the wheel, you're like deciding, you might, like you're at that point. Like, okay, so now you go, okay, I can't sustain this anymore. What's the first thing that you did after that?
I had to pause.
So what did that look like?
I had to pause, and I had to take some time,
Yep.
and I had to take a break. And obviously, I was working insane hours, so my break was more looking like a normal, no, normal human, but work hours. But I had to take a pause, and then I had to ask myself different questions. I had to say, is it worth it?
Right.
And if I project doing more of this, what will happen?
Right.
And all I could see is not good things. I mean, it wasn't gonna. It needed a shift, and then I was considering what kind of shift. It was a I would say a letting go process. So I had
Okay.
to let go
Right.
of the vision. It was some kind of Spartan commitment thing. The gonna warrior. I had to let go of that.
Yeah.
A warrior wasn't going to solve this. This was a major ship. It was a major big old operation that was not going to turn on a dime. No matter what kind of warrior is going to tackle this, it needed more wisdom.
Yeah.
It needed more introspection and more reality.
You said two things there, which I think is really important, and I want to kind of tag on to them for people. I think the first one is, as entrepreneurs, we struggle with the taking some time, with the pause, with it's hard. No matter if you're an entrepreneur with 10 employees or 10,000. And then the second thing that I think you said is that reflection. It caused you, I think every entrepreneur I've ever had on this program and every entrepreneur I've ever come into contact with, including myself, is you hit ceilings where you have to give up. You have to give up, whether it's leadership, you have to give up roles, you have to give up to get, right? And I think sometimes what happens is entrepreneurs look at that decision and they're like not willing to make it, right? And sometimes that's ego, and I know in your case there's no ego there, and yet that is a decision that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with making.
Yeah, we a lot of times we go out and we are involved from the beginning.
Yep.
So all the things that had to be done and decided, we did it all. And so then sometimes we get attached to that kind of this business is me and I am my business type of thing,
Absolutely.
identification with the business. And that's a piece that I had to let go of
Yep.
because this thing wasn't gonna turn around itself.
Yeah. And the ramification of that would be, significant, right? So, I mean, you really did. I mean, you had a choice, but you didn't really have a choice. So, I mean, I think if I asked you probably, one of the things you're most proud of, you're going to tell me, of course, that, it's the coming from the ashes, so to speak, right? But if there was one piece in that journey that aside from that you feel like was a big success or you're most proud of or really jumps out at you, whether it was decision, whether it was a decision not to do something, what would stand out in that journey, the biggest success?
The biggest success is how we built a team,
Okay.
how the team came together, how we faced the impossible odds, and how we prevailed. And so we pretty much, facing the, rebuilding the engine while the car is moving. You don't do that yourself. I remember walking into our war room meeting and saying, guys, if I could have solved this one, I would have already solved it.
Yeah.
And if we don't solve this one, we're done. And so if you got any ideas, now is the time. And literally, that was really vulnerable. It was the truth.
Yeah.
And I think that was the turning point, the inflection point of me owning all the problems and me carrying all the problems, and including the team like that vulnerably. Everybody's eyes were open, and they were starting to realize that they need to participate in this if they want to be a part of it still.
Absolutely.
And we built a team. We did that morning war room meeting for 3 years straight. Same time, at the beginning, we had all the 15 different leaders across our entire organization in the room. And these meetings are 90 minutes long at first, and then they went down to 60 to 30, and eventually there were 15-minute meetings. Everybody was learning cross-departmental things and how the business ran, and all of these things. It was an incredible process. But what was really rewarding, the private equity buyer, seasoned buyer, said that this is the best culture and team that I've ever acquired. And the 6-day thing that you mentioned, that was a 6-day transition. They said, "Oh, we need you to stay," and we said, "You don't need us. This is good. It runs without us. You don't need us." He said, "No, we need you." I said, "No, we're not gonna do it." I said, "No deal." He said, "Well," I said, "Maybe we can do a little bit." So so he said, 6 months. How about 6 months? We'll do 2 days a week for 6 months. And I think that could work. And they said, "Okay, let's do that." So in the third week of the transition, brought us into the boardroom and said, "You were right. You were right.
I love
Thank you
it.
very much." 6-day transition, and that's the testament to the kind of team we built. And what feels the greatest is what that did for those people. The team members, the leaders that stepped up, what that did for their lives, what that did for their careers, for their family at home, what kind of potential was tapped through that, and what that proved to them in their careers and lives. That's the part that's the most fulfilling on the defying the odds together.
Yeah, you hit the thing that I think other leaders struggle with, and that's succeeding through others. And yet, there's no more rewarding thing for a great leader than to experience that. Right? You can't describe it when the team that you built gets to experience that joy, that success as part of the process. So let me ask you a couple of questions before we tap into the exit piece of this. So, who are some of your, you mentioned Keith Cunningham. Are there any other mentors that you believe had an impact? Maybe you didn't know them, maybe it was a book that you read of theirs, but are there one or two mentors that really have impacted your journey as an entrepreneur?
Tony Robbins is a big influence. Both my wife and I became trainer for Tony Robbins.
Oh, wow.
Supported Tony's events and ran teams for him at his live events across the world. Another huge mentor is Bert Hellinger. He
Okay.
is a systemic and family and organizational facilitator.
Okay.
He started an entire modality of looking at systems and people and how to make things work. There's a huge influence and huge part of the reason why we were able to get through this. Dave Logan wrote a book called Tribal Leadership.
Okay.
Actually, Phil Jackson modeled some of those things in the triangle offense and the triads through that. That was a big part of our journey, because we built a triad of leaders
Yeah.
to replace me. Most owners are kind of unicorns with multidimensional skill sets and characteristics and things. And so we always say that when they think of replacing themselves, they say, "Oh, impossible, impossible." And I had to agree with him, because it was impossible for me too. And so
Yeah.
I said, "You're right. But what if we put 3 to 5 people
Exactly.
to replace you with complementary skills?" And
Yeah.
that's a model. So those are some things and people that came to mind as you asked me that question.
That's awesome. I love that, and all just great. A number of those I've heard of, and then what I love about always asking that question is now I get to go and do some research on somebody that I don't necessarily have a reference point for. And that's why I asked that question. So one other question I wanted to ask you just for reference points. So at the highest point, if you may, or during the journey, how many total employees were in the organization? Because you mentioned 15 leaders, which tells me there was a lot more people.
110 people.
Awesome. Okay. I just wanted to have some perspective and make sure others had perspective. Okay. So we're going to transition to the exit. And the first question that I have is, so you exit in 2022. At what point did you start thinking about exiting? Like what year?
So probably 2015.
So you're still in the kind of the we got a lot of stuff going on mode. And so tell me about that a little bit.
It was brain damaging the whole way through. It was
Okay.
really, really demanding and difficult. And we always knew we wanted to create a wholesome situation, take care of the legacy and the team and people and all, and create some freedom for ourselves, but we didn't know how. And we failed due diligence twice. So we were in two previous processes, and we fell out of them because we failed. I mean, we didn't.
You failed, or the buyer walked away?
Well, the buyer adjusted the valuation, which made it completely not. So I call it we failed because.
Okay, I love it. I love it.
We failed. I mean, but we could have sold, but not at the terms that
Sure.
would be acceptable. So we know a lot about due diligence, not because we like to, but because we had to learn about it.
Yeah.
So that's part of the kind of funny thing that we say, and we prepare people for sale and all kinds of things, and that experience served us really well. And we did ace it at the end with 98% cash deal,
which is unheard of, right? In that type of company with a equity, private equity or venture capital firm, or that's unheard of. So how did the buyer approach you? Like, you went through two due diligence. Were you marketing the business? Was a broker marketing it, or was it just through word of mouth?
The first time it was an industry expert.
Okay.
Was in a very narrow niche expert, and they knew all the major players. So we were kind of looking for a strategic buyer. That didn't pan out, obviously, because we were not in a prepared state.
Yeah.
For maximizing the exit. And the second time it was actually investment banking track. And that one didn't work either because we were still not prepared enough.
Yeah.
And we flunked out of due diligence. And then finally, the third time was the full-on investment banking process.
Yeah.
That we went through, and we had the entire process by the book to get interest and potential buyers and go through the process.
What year was the first buyer? What was the first offer? What year was that?
I think 2015-ish.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Okay. And then the last buyer that ultimately purchased it, what year did that process start?
2021.
Yeah. So one of the things, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but in this process that we're both in a mastermind group that's focused on business acquisitions, and of course, in that case, we're on the buyer side, right? And yet what you've shared with us today is that, many businesses are not prepared for the exit. And the reason that that's such a huge, huge blind spot is that means then the value that they're likely going to get isn't what they likely expect to get. And frankly, they don't even understand, like if you sell a business for 10 million, everybody goes, well, I'm taking 10 million away. No, you're not. Like, you got a 98% cash deal. So, 98% of 10 million's, 9.8 million, but you've got 30 to 40% in tax, and people go, oh, wait, I kind of forgot about that. So it just goes to the value of understanding, and I'm kind of tying into why these podcasts are so important to me. it's tying the understanding to, we've got to get on that exit a lot sooner than business owners are thinking, because in your case, you had kind of like, this was the kind of like the 2015, I'm kind of done with this deal. And yet, if you would have exited in 2015, you wouldn't have gotten nearly the value that you got when you exited in 22, I'm guessing.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So what else would you share with listeners, owners? Let's just perceive they're at some stage of, have no desire to exit, not even thinking about it, to, I'd really love to give this business to somebody. Like, what would be 2 or 3 things in that journey that other than what you shared already, that you'd share with somebody who's listening?
One thing I want to share to the operators that are very involved in their business, and that may be thinking to themselves, man, I'm so buried in here that I don't even see the possibility. Like I literally had only this much, like maybe it could work. The gap was so huge to actually building a team that I didn't think it was possible. So I wanna first of all tell the operators it's possible.
Right.
If I could have done it from the bottom where I was just burned out to a crisp and couldn't let go of the wheel, walk in one more time into my own building, if I could do it from there, you can do it wherever you are.
Absolutely.
Okay? So that's the first thing. It's possible and you can do it. One step at a time. It may take some time, which it will.
Right.
But you can do it. Okay, that's for those guys. And the guys that have built a business that is doing pretty well, I want to tell you, if you're thinking of exiting, you got to sit down and you got to write down all the skeletons in your risk closet. So because you have some risk skeletons that you are kind of in the back of your mind, that they're there.
Yeah.
But they're acceptable to you because you've been running this business 20 years.
Right.
You know the X will happen and Y will happen and how you're going to deal with it. And even though you know how you would deal with it and you have a high level of confidence about it, let me tell you, the buyers will not have that.
No.
And so you must write down and pull out all the skeletons, and you got to look at them. You got to let the sun hit them, and you got to get an outside perspective on them. You got to probably work with someone that can bridge the gap of what the buyers are going to think, so you can hear that unfiltered perspective. And then you got to actually address all those things if you think you're going to get anything close to the maximum value for your business.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that. And, just as an aside, I get so frustrated with politics and just the whole political thing, right? Doesn't matter what side of the aisle on. And I always think about running for office. And then I always think about the skeletons that I have in the closet, the 17-year-old girl that I dated. And, the dad didn't like me and it's going to come out of the woodwork. When you said skeletons, it always comes to my mind, because that's why I'm not running for office. There are skeletons someplace that somebody will remember. And, so when you say that, it just hit me like, yeah, exactly. And yet here's the thing. Everybody's got them, right? Every company has blemishes. Every company has things they wish they would have done better. And I think the biggest thing to kind of pull out of that, correct me if I'm wrong, is the skeletons aren't necessarily bad things. Like a skeleton could be 70% of your business is focused on one client, and therefore the buyer is going to look at that and go, if we lose that client, our value, dramatically decreases. Those are it's not, we call them skeletons, but it's things we don't really think about, right? And that is so important for the due diligence part of the value. So yeah, I love that you brought that up.
Transparency with those things really helps. You want to come out and tell them all these things, because if you find out by themselves, your valuation is going down, or the whole deal might be tanked because they can't trust you for not disclosing that. Right. They're wondering what else you didn't disclose. And if you have the skeletons, it could be the way you track inventory, the way you did the numbers, the way something is organized, or maybe you have a key employee that they're not sure that is going to be staying. Because guy goes, then you're in trouble. So you have to actually de-risk the business,
Yeah.
de-stress the business in the actual facts. That will make your business run better. You can actually exit without exiting. You can actually create freedom while still owning your business, which is what we did, and
Sure.
which is what I recommend. And when the buyers come, you say, "Well, I'm not really involved in operations." That's music to their ears, and
Yeah.
it does incredible things for your valuation.
Yeah. Well, and you've I'm sure heard this. I mean, like due diligence in some aspects for some buyers, the whole goal is how much we can reduce down the price that we initially offered. So you just kind of eliminate that, take it off the table. Oh my gosh, Ivan, you've been amazing today. Like by far, I mean, this has been an amazing insights in your journey. And I'm grateful that we have an opportunity to talk today. So what I'm going to do, we're going to put a ribbon on this conversation. So I want to ask you a question, and I haven't prepared you for this, and yet I know you'll be prepared. If there was one thing you haven't shared with us today that you really feel like would be important to share, what would it be? About anything, by the way.
Yeah, I think I already alluded to it, but I think that your business and your business's value is only going to grow as much as you grow.
Mm,
And so looking out to continue to have a beginner's mind, even though you might be at the top of your hill there in your business, you may be the Michael Jordan of your space. You might be the best of the best. But maybe you can learn about how to roll other people in. Maybe you can build a team around you. There's always something to learn. And if you continue to grow, your business will continue to grow.
so I didn't ask you this, but it just kind of triggered me. So you do the exit in 22. What have you been doing since 22?
Well, funny that you ask. We thought that we're gonna just go guns blazing into the next thing,
Oh,
but
yeah.
we learned that we did we did a decade of very heavy lifting. So as much as we thought we're gonna just keep going in the next venture, which is the Jumpstart Your Exit venture,
Yep.
we learned that we needed a sabbatical. So
Good for
it
you.
took about a year of just slowing down. We didn't plan for it. Actually,
You planned the
our
opposite.
we were actually planning to just go, and we
Yeah.
realized that we just couldn't. It was like a anticlimax, and we were wiped out. And
Yeah.
so we needed to pause and slow down. And I actually didn't want to continue building the new business with the same kind of patterns from the old business. So I needed a pause there, in which we took, and took a lot of actually silence and going into introspection
Yep.
to the nth degree, because we wanted to see what really, now that we have the space, what wants to happen now. And that was very, very useful. So preparing a little bit for that process after the exit is very, very smart. And after that kind of rest and unwinding, we've been sharing this information with other business owners in similar position like us, and people that can learn from our journey, get out of the grind of operations, free themselves up in their own business, and eventually, if they want to exit, they can also have that option. And that's what we've been doing. We're very active on LinkedIn, sharing these stories every day. There's a new story coming out on from the wars of the past, and
Yeah.
being a part of amazing masterminds with you, Pat, also, and continuing to learn, because there's always more to grow into.
Yeah, well, I love it, and I'm so glad that I asked you that question because I think there are people who prepare for the exit, and whether they prepared to ride off into the sunset, or whether they prepared to take time off, or whether they prepared to do something else. About 75% of the time, what they prepared to do isn't what they actually end up doing. So it's such a great way to end. So Ivan, if somebody was to want to get in touch with you, reach out to you, make connection, where would be the best place for them to do that?
LinkedIn is a great place. We're very active there on a daily basis. We're doing a lot of education there. and sharing a lot of information. So there's already a lot of resources there people can get. And beyond that, on our website, jumpstartyourexit.com, you can also see part of our process, part of the advisory board that we're both a part of, and all of the different things on how we do what we do, and the track record of our work.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love Jumpstart Your Exit. That's just awesome. Well, Ivan, again, so grateful we had the opportunity to talk today. You've been amazing. You've contributed so much to our conversation. So I just truly appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Pat. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. And listeners, thank you so much for your support. Whether you listen to us, on videos, whether you listen to us on your favorite podcast, please, go to your social media, like us, follow us, share it, because we do what we do because of your support, and we so appreciate it. And that allows us to bring great guests like Ivan to the table. So everybody, thank you so much. Again, Ivan, thanks so much. We appreciate you. Everybody, have an amazing day. Take care.
Thank you for joining Destination Business Freedom with Pat Mancuso. May the insights and strategies shared guide you towards financial prosperity and personal freedom. Continue to navigate boldly. Until next time, keep transforming challenges into achievements. Farewell, and stay the course.